Shalom and welcome to another edition of Parsha Talk. I'm Rabbi Elliot Malamit in Highland Park, New Jersey, at the Highland Park Conservative Temple Congregation on Shemet. And joining me, good friends, Rabbi Barry Chesler, Solomon Schechter Day School of Long Island, Rabbi Jeremy Kalmanovsky, Anshe Chesed in New York City. We are recording this on day 487 of the war and the captivity of the hostages, praying for their release, knowing that each week has brought three, four, even more hostages to freedom, to their families, and it's we share in the joy and the anguish of the families that are still waiting for them, and we are constantly remembering the hostages and keeping them at the top of our prayers and our hopes, knowing that this period in our history won't be complete without their restoration, their return home. And we find great comfort as our listeners and viewers, we appreciate, have over these months in studying the Torah together and looking at, for example, a Parsha, this week's Parsha, Parshat Beshalah. This is the Parsha we know as Shabbat Shirah. We know this as the week of Shirah because of the focus, the centerpiece of this parsha, the Song of the Sea, Shirat Moshe or Shirat Miriam, it may even be called. But before we get to that, we are dealing with Pharaoh sending the people out. Vayhi b'shalach paro et ha'am. Pharaoh sends the people out. I just want to take a moment to skip down to verse 19, and I don't think we've ever focused on this before. Vayikach Moshe et atzmot Yosef imo. That Moses took the bones of Joseph with him. Ki hashbea hishbia. I read the Torah this morning, and it says hashbea hishbia. He vowed, or Bnei Israel vowed that Joseph made them swear that they would take his bones out of Egypt. So it's an interesting uh, little. I don't want to say it's a footnote because that would be
Yeah.
offensive to Joseph. uh, it's not a footnote. If it's a
It was
footnote,
the
it would
whole, it
be
was the whole note. It was
it's a
a
whole
thigh
note.
note and a hip note and a back note and a hand note.
Exactly, exactly. But uh, it's so interesting that the bones of Joseph forms a kind of thread through the six books, the first six books of the Tanakh, because we had Bereshit ending with uh, Joseph making this vow. We have this at the center of Yetziat Mitzrayim. Moses is really occupied with this, and Joshua, the book of Joshua, really ends with Bnei Israel burying Joseph's bones in Shechem, and it raises a beautiful uh, rabbinic teaching that some may be familiar with, because there's a contradiction. Here it says, Katuv echad omer vayikach Moshe et atzmot Yosef. This text says that Moses took Joseph's bones, and we have another text in the book of Joshua where it says, Ve'et atzmot Yosef asher he'elu b'nei Yisrael miMitzrayim, that the entire people of Israel took the bones of Joseph out of Egypt, kavru b'Shechem, they buried them in Shechem. So we have a contradiction, and the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Chama bar Chanina, a rabbinic sage who may be familiar to some of us who have the Sim Shalom Sidur, Kol ha'oseh davar velo gamro. Anyone who does something without finishing it, uva acher v'gamro, and someone else completes the act, ma'aleh alav hakatuv al shegamru ki'ilu asa'o. You get credit for finishing it, not the person who
So that actually works on a double
go
level
ahead.
because at the end of Breshit, Joseph has Bnei Israel, the sons of Jacob, swear that they'll take his bones out, and yet it's Moses who does it.
But the
And
Bnei
then
Israel gets the
Moses
credit.
will be replaced by the greater Bnei Israel.
Yeah.
So there's actually three steps to the process.
Well, go
And
over that again. Just clarify because I want to clarify.
so at the end of Breshit, Joseph has the sons of Jacob and Israel swear they'll take his bones out of Egypt. And in Shemot, Moses takes the bones.
Yes.
So Moses gets credit for something that fell upon Bnei Israel at the end of Breshit. But at the end of Joshua, the greater Bnei Israel, the nation, gets credit for something that Moses initiated, the actual carrying of the bones
Okay.
out of Egypt.
So I'm thinking like what's the homiletical truth here? I'm thinking about this in terms of, the song from Pirkei Avot, the song from Pirkei Avot, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It's not up to you to finish the text, V'lo ata ben chorin libatel mimenu, but you're not free to desist from it. And so where I want to go with this is maybe it's saying that we're all in a continuum in a certain task. Now, is there a time when a task is completed? I guess the burial of Joseph's bones is the completion of the task. So therefore, the children of Israel get credit for it. So Moses doesn't get any credit for it.
Well,
Jeremy,
Moses isn't alive when they get buried there, or he isn't there Be'eretz Yisrael when he gets buried there, when they get buried there. I feel like the homiletical power, the specific question of who does it. Moses initiated it, and his successors, Bnei Israel. Moses represents Bnei Israel, and his successors, get the job done. Joshua gets the job done. I think that there's like a number of really interesting things going on in the text, which include, first of all, you have to assume the whole story of Joseph thrown into a pit in Shechem um, is a foreshadowing of the fact, and I think that any ancient reader knew this fact, that Joseph's bones are in a pit in Shechem. So part of the way that that story works back in Genesis 37 is that he's thrown in a pit, and we know that he's going to return to that pit. And there's that wonderful midrash about after they bury Yaakov in Ma'arat Machpelah, Joseph scoots back to see the pit where they threw him, and the brothers get really scared because they think now he's going to take vengeance. And he says, "No, no, I'm here to say Baruch Sha'asani Nes B'Makom Hazeh. Blessed is God
yeah.
who rescued me in this place." But so I think that I
Thank God
think
he studied Talmud.
it must be the case. It must be the case for the ancient biblical audience, that they already know that there's this shrine where Joseph's bones are. And
Yeah.
so the story in Egypt needs the plot device of him making them swear. But what I like about this on a homiletical level, as if there are two, I think it's fair to say that there are kind of at least two, but certainly two major spines or like structural things about this religion of ours. You've got the stuff that's in the book, the Torah, the values, the ideas. You've got the clan, the family, the history that's in our DNA. And so we have this wonderful midrash that imagines the children of Israel carrying two caskets or two boxes along their journey in in the wilderness to Eretz Yisrael, the one that holds the tablets and the Torah from God, and one that holds Joseph's bones, representing the family and the clan and the descent from the patriarchs, matriarchs. So I feel, and the Midrash says very beautifully, the people would say, "What's up with the people who would see the Israelites?" And they'd say, "What's up with the two caskets?" And they would say that the one who lies in this casket fulfilled the what that lies in this casket.
Yeah.
The person here, the person whose body is here, is the epitome of living the Torah. Okay, whether that's true in this character Joseph in the story, we'll leave that aside. But to me, that is the beautiful mingling of a religion about a clan, which is really super important. It's a religion about bones. It's about history. It's about making a shrine out of their graves. And it's about love your neighbors yourself and feed the poor and don't lie and don't steal and all of those other incredibly important axiological, ethical mitzvot.
So what I'm thinking of as you talk, I'm thinking about the ceremony. I'm a pulpit rabbi, so I think in these terms, and so they bring the bones to burial in Shechem, and they just don't throw them in a pit. They're they have to have a funeral. Okay. So the question is, who gets the eulogy and what is said in the eulogy? Okay. And
So
since
it's pretty clear who gets the eulogy is Joshua,
Joshua,
because
okay,
the arc of the story is Joseph is the ancestor of Joshua, who is the ancestor of the Northern Kingdom.
okay, fine.
Uh,
My,
But
but so
1 second,
you'll go ahead.
just to complete the thought, and Joshua is the successor of
Moses.
Moses.
Yeah,
But the arc of the Bible is about Yehudah, not about Joseph.
fine. Let's put Yehuda on the side for a second. Okay. What I want to say is,
Because it's not as opposed to Joseph. It's both. And yes, Yehuda is the kingdom that will be the Davidic kingdom. Yeah, I got it. But
see, my
Ephraim is
question is,
also
from a eulogy point of view, do you think Joshua, never mind Joshua, any one of us in this situation, if we knew something about the crowd and we knew something about what we needed to say, we would not be the ones taking credit for the final act. We would say the only reason why we got here is because Moses took it out of the and so and Moses,
Right, but that's what you would say, but it's not what you meant.
but no, I'm thinking it's the irony of Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina who is saying this. He says that the Bnei Israel gets credit for it, but that's an ironic statement because they couldn't get credit for it unless Moses did it. There's something embedded in that, which is of course they get credit for finishing the act, but A, is an act ever finished, and B, could that act ever have meaning without the primary people involved in the act? And that's the answer. The answer is of course not. As
So,
I say, I'm giving the eulogy over the bones of Joseph, and if I'm worth my salt, I'm going to give hakarat tov. I'm going to acknowledge, the greatness of my predecessor Moses, who brought, who had the who had the wherewithal at the moment of the tumultuous, chaotic exodus to dig up the bones or to get them brought to him and then to take him and to deal with it himself, as other midrashim deal, other ones say.
right. But what I would add is that Moses acts on behalf of the people,
Ah, okay,
right? Sometimes the leader is the representative of the people and
right,
not just him or herself.
right, and so
And
yeah, go ahead.
so here it's wrapped up together.
that's very good. Moses is when Joseph makes the people swear. Well, who else would it be other than Moses who got the job done? By the way, let's sing her praises as well, Serach bat Asher, because you have the crazy little motif.
Yes,
You have the crazy little motif in the story that they leave Egypt, and then it says, "Oh, and they took the bones," giving rise to a midrashic little twist that they left Egypt, and then said, "Oh, wait a minute, what about the bones?" And they couldn't find them, but Serach bat Asher, who is listed both among the names of the people who went into Egypt and the name of the people who went out. She is like a kind of a mythic, ancient oracle. She's always there. She knows everything. She was there for the patriarchs and she was there for the Exodus. She tells them that whatever it was, Pharaoh had hidden in a metal casket at the bottom of the Nile, and Moses says the right words, and it comes up. Or I think there are multiple. If I remember, I think there are multiple
layers to it.
construals of that.
Look, it's the it's fascinating. I'm going back to what you said, Jeremy, at the beginning, which is there are two boxes here, and it seems counterintuitive for such a tradition that's so life oriented to be, you know, um, focused on the bones. But I don't want to, we're in a moment in history where giving a proper burial to Kfurat Yisrael is it's emotional just to even say those words. All of these bodies, these corpses that are of people murdered in Gaza, that they need to be repatriated. They need to be brought back. And and on the most basic level, bringing Joseph back, the repatriation of his bones, is itself, this moment of redemption. It's finally recognizing and applying it or enabling Joseph to to have a kind of kapara, I think, because there is a recognition that he brought them all down. And I'm a little, less charitable on Joseph because he does recognize that he sets in motion a chain of events that leads to their entrenchment in Egypt. He doesn't necessarily recognize because he dies before the period of intense slavery, but he recognizes that he is responsible for their, and I think he regrets it, and that the burial functions as a kind of kapara for them. But I may be wrong.
So, so that gives more punch to the oath then,
Yes,
because
definitely.
he does not want to be buried in Egypt. And you were talking about eulogizing him at the end of Yehoshua. So they're back in his hometown, so to speak,
Uh-huh.
right? The one place that is home to him from a formative point of view is Shechem. And now he's going to come back to Shechem.
All right. So now we want to just shift gears here and go to Shirat Hayam. Uh, it's an extraordinary text. People who are familiar with the synagogue service are recognize the text, probably have memorized it. They recite it daily. I remember when I was in the fourth or fifth grade, we had an assignment to memorize this. It was very, one of those. We don't. Do we make kids remember or memorize things today? I don't know, Barry. What do you think? You're a teacher.
No, everyone has a smartphone. You don't have to remember
No,
anything.
so think
I
about
don't
it.
even know
Think
my
about
kids' phone numbers. I just,
it.
I just push the button. I don't have to. I don't even know the phone number.
So, we have access to so much information in the sense that it's at our fingertips. I mean, I just toggled to the entire rabbinic library, which is gagillion bytes of information, and I have noticed as I age, I remember less of it. Okay, but I still know my Bar Mitzvah Parsha by heart. Anyway, so
So, but there is something to be said for memorizing. Don't get me
exactly,
wrong. But
exactly.
it does not happen the way that it used to.
So Az Yashir Moshe u'vnei Yisrael et Hashira hazot ladonai vayomru lemor. Then once Israel comes out of the Reds or the Sea of Reeds, they get to the other side. It's daytime. The Egyptians are all drowning. They've drowned. There's quiet. It's a very complicated moment. That's the
And
moment
it's Yontif.
that Moses is singing. So it's so interesting the rabbis, how the rabbis analyze this. Since we looked at a passage from Sota before, which is the Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina passage on the bones, there's another passage from Sota that talks about the how the song is recited, and basically it goes like this. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna share it in front of you because let's look at it. Okay, so Rabbi Nehemiah says the Holy Spirit, Sharat Ruach HaKodesh, reposed upon them, and they intoned song as one reciting the Shema. Okay, one beginning and the other continuing. And Rabbi Akiva said, Ruach HaKodesh Sharat Yisrael Omrim Shira, as men reciting the Hallel. And so we'll leave it there. Those are two takes on this, which tells us that they're debating the way it was sung. It would be almost analogous to, people coming to shul. I'll throw out one example of, let's say, I don't know how it is when people recite, let's say, the kedusha. Okay, there is a tradition of reciting where the congregation says it and the chazan repeats it, or then there's a tradition where everybody says it together, or we have all sorts of traditions relating to how Hallel is sung. So here we have a moment where there's singing, a moment where there's a collective singing, but it clearly says the text Az Yashir Moshe Uvnei Yisrael, Moses and the people of Israel. Okay, so it's Moses. Like the obvious question is, well, how does everybody know the words to the song? Right? Who taught them the song?
Ruach
Because the
HaKodesh.
Ruach
screen
HaKodesh
they
taught them.
had screen sharing.
They had screen share. Okay, so in the
It was
absence of all
WhatsApp.
that, you can learn a song fairly quickly if I were to say Ashira la, I would say, everybody, here's how you learn a song. I mean, I've been through hundreds of sessions with song leaders who say, I'm going to teach you this song, right? And it's you learn the melody, you learn the song, and you make, I remember when I was a young camper and there was the song leader, and he met he if the song went up, he when his hands went up and his song went down, and we learned songs that way, right? Ani ve'ata neshane et ha'olam, right? 70s. Me and you will change the world. Az yashir Moshe uvnei Yisrael et hashira azot ladonai vayomru leimor. That's how we sing it at camp, okay? But the question that they're asking, it's a great question, which is, okay, this is a centerpiece of your worship, but how is it? What's the authentic way that it was sung?
Well, but between the lines, I mean, this is, I think, those of us who really like the literature of Chazal, of Chachamenu Zichronam Livracha, our Talmudic era sages of blessed memory, you know that they make meaning out of small details of law. They tell
Yeah,
you, here's how you should behave. And if you pay real close attention, they're not just saying, don't let your peas touch your carrots. It's not just a kind of repetitive OCD. They're trying to make some poetry out of it. So there's those two clips that you had, or two little snippets. One says that it's antiphonal, like a person reading Hallel seems to be an antiphonal. One person says A, everyone else responds B. One person says C, everyone else responds D. And it becomes a song, but not everybody says everything. Perhaps Shema Yisrael. What was it in the ancient synagogue? I'm not exactly sure. This thing that we call Pores al Shema. That's the rabbinic term. It appears to be something like um, uh, uh, perhaps the leader says X and everybody else repeats X. The leader
right.
says Y, everyone repeats Y, or perhaps everyone says X and everyone else, the leader says X and everyone else recites the refrain over and over again.
So
It's
that's
hard to know.
Nehemiah, Rabbi Nehemiah, who we kind of like Rabbi Nehemiah. He's very creative. Okay. So he's saying that I start, you finish. One beginning, the other continue. Shema Yisrael, and then everyone answers Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Okay. And Akiva, everybody doing the Hallel, meaning back and forth, or in any ways of choral singing. Okay. And
Because Psalm 118, by the way, the core of
yes,
Hallel, Psalm 118, and those of you who out there in Shul land have noticed that you have those verses that get repeated. They get said twice because all the verses, except those ones at the end, are in antiphonal pairs. Mina Metzar Karatiya, from the narrow place,
yeah.
I called out to you, Anani Vamerchavya, and you responded me with wide open, love.
Places.
Uh, uh, what's another example? Yamin Adonai Osachayil, the right hand of God does mightiness. Yamin Adonai Romema, the right hand of God does
Or
does.
what about Hodu Lanunai Kitov, and then the refrain Kili Olam Chazdo, and we were mentioning how there's so much confusion around. I get into all these discussions in Armenian about how should you say this? Do you repeat Hodu Lanunai Kitov? Do you not repeat? And the answer is, of course, we do everything. That's the tradition. It's a mess, but it's only a mess because there are many different kinds of experiences that a person has in worship. I, you know, I don't think we have this culture in North American Jewry of the collective singing, although it is part of, many synagogues. But have you ever seen this, the Kol Kulam videos?
Yeah, they're
Kululam,
great,
they're amazing. Okay,
amazing.
amazing. What are these kululam things? They spend about an hour teaching people maybe simple harmonies and simple parts of popular Israeli songs that are sung in community. They fill up a stadium or they fill up a hall with hundreds of people and they sing together and it blows you away. That feeling of togetherness and it's a
So
religious.
where do you think that feeling comes from?
I think the experience of music together, singing together, is a a deeply rooted experience of human beings that already in describing is very hard to describe. And that and
So
it's
I want to suggest
slightly,
something else
go ahead.
a little bit, and that what makes Kululam is that it's harmony, which means that each individual is necessary for the whole, but each individual is also subordinate. That you create something larger than yourself when you participate in harmonic singing. So when
All
we
right.
look at two approaches, right, there's a difference between everyone saying every single word, whether in the call and response, let's say, and a different if we go antiphonally where someone says half a phrase and the other one completes it,
Right.
because then you need everyone. And what makes the call and I'm getting confused in the language now, but what makes the one sort of like the other is harmony, where everyone or not, there are different voices that are being heard.
Right. So
I
your
was
And I want to
experience,
just,
I was
go
one
ahead.
time on an interfaith trip. It was Christian pastors and rabbis, and we're in the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, and they sing "O Little Town of Bethlehem," and the that 10 or 15 or whatever of the Christians, they all had like specific parts. And I'm like, where did you guys come up with that? How did you know? What's and they said, oh, from a young age, the altos are taught the one thing, and the sopranos are taught the other thing, and the tenors are taught other. So we just get together, and some of us are tenors, and some of us are baritones, some of us are
There you
altos,
go.
and we just knew what our parts were. And I
Yeah.
was like stoned. I couldn't believe they had just met each other and they were harmonizing beautifully.
All right, so let's project that into the Song of the Sea, which is the 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 rabbis are saying, and they're projecting into this that there's some kind of experience here. Is it a choral experience? Is it a call response experience? Is it a you say one half of the verse, I'll say the other half of the verse? This is it. Is it a passive experience where, for example, they just repeat Ashir Ladonai Kigoa. That's one of the positions in the Gemara in Masechet Sota also. That Moses starts and goes through the whole thing, and they just respond Ashir Ladonai Kigoa Susvarachva. They're just repeating that over and over again because they only know that one verse. And where we go with this is these are different contours of the religious experience. And that when we encounter a text like this, a song like this, which has become part of the living, soul of the Jewish people, it's really imprinted itself on the Jewish soul. All of a sudden, you see the varieties of experience in there. And it has to do with music, it has to do with emotion, it has to do with the fact that, you come to this at different points in your life or in your day or in your year and whatever, and you're going to see different things in it, the way the rabbis are seeing different aspects or valences to this song. And that's where we come to our conclusion here, wishing everyone this they should have a song-filled Shabbat. They should have a Shabbat filled with this music as we're getting different layers of the Jewish soul through these experiences and through the months that we are going through. And want to thank you for watching and thank you for listening and pray that everyone has a good Shabbat, inspired by music and inspired by Torah. We'll see you next week on the next edition of Parasha Talk. Shabbat Shalom.